Today we're going to talk about marketing channels. Place, one of the 4 P's. Marketing channel structure. First of all, we should know that a marketing channel is really part of the supply chain. It is the downstream towards the end user portion of the supply chain. So another important idea is the concept of levels. Levels represent the organizations and or functions that occur as the product moves from the producer or manufacturer to the end user. So a direct channel or a zero level channel, is one where the producer creates a product and ships it directly, interfaces with the consumers directly. Tesla does this. They sell their cars directly to consumers. Most business-to-business products are sold this way. The company has its own sales force that contacts customers. Apple sells many of its own products through its website. A retailer channel is an example of a one-level channel, very common in consumer products and some business-to-business. For example, Ralph Lauren sells its polo products to retailers who then, like Nordstrom, who then resell it to end users. A wholesaler channel is one where the manufacturer sells a product to a wholesaler. The wholesaler buys the products or brands in large quantities, stores them in inventory, and then sells them in smaller amounts to retailers who stock them in their stores, and then the retailers sell them to the end users. An agent or broker channel really isn't about the number of levels, but really what an agent or broker does. So an agent or broker is somebody who helps sell or market a product but doesn't take possession of it, meaning that they don't buy it from the producer and then resell it. For example, a real estate agency with realtors, when they represent a homeowner's house for sale, they don't buy the house and then resell it. They only act in their faith to find them a buyer and then collect a commission or some percentage of the sale. There are 3 functions that occur in every channel, regardless of how many levels or who performs them. The first one is the idea of exchange. Exchange is when the channel helps bring buyers and sellers together. The second one is logistical or distribution. The products or service has to be able to get to the end user. The third is this idea of facilitation. That's where different members in the channel or different things are done to add value to the channel that benefit the customers, such as taking many different forms of payment. An important idea nowadays is the idea of an omni-channel in retailing. Whether we buy a product online or in the store and want to return it online or to the store, people expect that. So companies have to be able to provide their customers with all these different options. Marketing intermediaries are companies that come in between the producer and the end user. They assist in this process in the marketing channel, whether they are a level themselves or just assist in moving the products or doing something in the products between levels. There are many common different marketing intermediaries. Wholesalers, distributors, retailers, jobbers, they buy and resell merchandise. They're levels. Transportation companies, they help assist. Banks, leasing companies, credit card companies, other types of financial institutions, they make it easier for people to buy things or companies to buy things. And then agents and brokers. They help companies distribute their products, often calling on potential customers that the company wouldn't be able to reach. Marketers have the opportunity to design, to the best of their ability, the type of channel structure they want. There are some issues that they have to pay attention to. The first is how many levels. The second is, should they use marketing intermediaries or should they do it themselves? When designing a channel or thinking about the structure, there is an important consideration in terms of the exchange function. That's the notion of contact efficiency. The company has to figure out the most cost-effective and marketing effective way to bring buyers and sellers together so that they may purchase the product. For example, electronics companies find it much more efficient for them to sell to large retailers who have many consumers coming to their stores than trying to operate their own stores. Probably wouldn't be able to bring enough people in, as most people would rather go to a location where there are multiple manufacturers to choose from. There are several issues to consider in terms of distribution or logistics. One is geographical distance. All right, the further away something is, the longer and harder it is to ship, the longer it takes to resupply inventories. Most companies find that when products have to move long distances, it's more effective to use intermediaries. Bulk and weight. Bulk and weight costs money to ship. Large products that don't have much value are very expensive to ship. Companies are more likely to use intermediaries. In some cases, it's more effective for them to build factories in different locations than it is to ship from a central factory. Pricing. If the item doesn't sell for a very high price, it's more likely companies will use intermediaries because they can bear more of the cost of the distribution of the product. Perishability, meaning that the product needs to be somewhere fast or it will perish. Again, that requires faster transportation. Most companies are likely to use intermediaries such as FedEx or UPS. Facilitation functions. There are several considerations in this category. First is dealing with forms of payment. When you go to Best Buy to buy a big screen TV, you can pay with a credit card, cash, write a personal check, use a debit card, use a gift card. All right? If it's really expensive, you can lease it, take out a loan. So if customers are likely to use multiple forms of payment, you have to make sure that your channel can accept them. A second one is the notion of service installation and maintenance. Many products just can't be used by the end user. They have to be installed. Many business-to-business products require installation and service. Products need regular maintenance that the owner can't necessarily perform. So again, you have to decide in your channel whether or not you can perform those or whether you want somebody else to do that. And the third thing is collecting information. Channels are rich sources of information. What's selling? Who's buying it? What are the problems? What do people like about the products? Different competition. What do stores think? So again, the question is, who collects this information? How accurate is it? How good a job can they do? Another issue is whether performing any of the functions in the marketing channel is a good investment. Procter & Gamble is one of the largest marketer of consumer products. They don't have their own store. They probably have enough products where they could, but a grocery store, a supermarket, only makes about 1% gross profit margin. They keep 1 penny for every dollar spent by a customer. Procter & Gamble does much better than that. So it makes more sense for them to stick to developing and marketing products rather than retailing them. Apple, on the other hand, is really the only major electronics company that has their own stores. How come? Well, they have so many customers and a wide array of products that having the stores enables them to sell more products, gives people a place to bring their products if they're an issue, helps them upgrade people to new products. They collect the service money, and by providing free support with their geniuses, helps build a strong customer relationship. So for them, it makes a lot of sense. Most other manufacturers of electronics don't have a large enough customer base to do something like that. Perhaps the most important issue is whether or not a company can establish a competitive advantage that they can use to boost their sales and profits. Dell made its big move when it was able to lower its costs while doing mass customization on its own. You ordered online, the order went directly to their manufacturing facility and partners, and they made your computer to order and were able to ship it out in a timely process. Aflac, which sells disability insurance and other forms of insurance to businesses offer it to their employees, but the employees actually pay for it. Aflac doesn't have its own sales force. It uses independent contractors. They don't have to provide benefits or a salary to salespeople who aren't selling a lot. But if you are an independent contractor for Aflac and you sell a lot, they pay you very well. So their money is used efficiently. It only goes to people who are producing for them. Amway, Avon, Herbalife, there's a bunch of organizations that use multi-level marketing. They have this large group of people selling their products mainly to family and close friends, who then in turn sell the product to their family and close friends. This helps them distribute their product very cost effectively. They don't really need to do a lot of advertising because it's all word of mouth through these different connections that their employees have. Which retailers that you get your product into has a big impact on the perceptions of quality. Stihl, a leading maker of chainsaws, leaf blowers, and other types of consumer and professional lawn equipment, sells their products only through small stores. They feel that smaller stores are more likely to provide better customer service and repair. And then also they don't sell their products at the big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's, and they don't have to compete directly with companies that have low prices, and they're not pressured by their retailers to drop their prices. Next, I want to talk about a marketing channel that I have some experience with. It's the automotive aftermarket. It's the channel or part of the supply chain that supplies replacement parts for cars that are being fixed or worked on. So the traditional channel was a manufacturer. Allied Signal happened to make Fram filters, Champion spark plugs. There's hundreds and hundreds of companies and different manufacturers. They would typically sell to a wholesaler. A wholesaler would buy the products in large amounts, store them in 1 or 2 or 3 very large buildings, and then they would deliver them as needed to retailers. And in this example, at that point in time, most retailers were single local mom and pop auto parts stores like West Springfield Auto Parts. They had 2 customers. They would sell either to consumers like us who might walk in because we're fixing our car or want to do something nice or fix it up. And they would also deliver parts to garages or installers who fix the cars of consumers or for businesses. And most installers at that point in time were located at gas stations. So most gas stations also provided automotive services. So before we kind of talk about what happened in this channel, first of all, we need to kind of understand what flows up and down through a channel. The first is product. Product moves from the manufacturer towards the end user, the consumer, but also product moves the other way. Defective products move back to the manufacturer. And in the automotive industry and other industries, sometimes products that are no longer working can be rebuilt. So they are purchased by the installer or the retailer and then shipped back out to somebody who's going to rebuild them. So there's products moving in both directions. Money moves in both directions. Payment for the products, all right, move opposite of the flow of the products. The timing's not the same. Products move a lot faster than payments usually, as companies can sometimes take 30, 60, or 90 days to pay. And then there's promotional funding from manufacturers and retailers to help sell products. Another important idea is title to the goods. In other words, who owns it? Normally, the wholesaler purchases the product from the manufacturer. The retailer purchases it from the wholesaler. The installer purchases it from the retailer, and the consumer pays for the part when they get the bill from the installer. Sometimes, though, a manufacturer might set products on consignment to the wholesaler. So the wholesaler won't have to pay for them. They'll only have to pay when they return the products and pay for the products that actually got sold. This in itself isn't so complicated, but let's say, for example, there was a fire at the wholesaler's location and a lot of the products were destroyed. Who owns them? The wholesaler never got billed. They never took title to the products. So it can become a big mess. And the last part that flows up and down is information about customers, what other members in the channel are doing, competitive channels. All that information is flowing up and down. So as you might be able to tell, and if you ever worked in the back room for a retailer, it's really messy. There's products moving back and forth, not necessarily money moving through the back office, but products and money moving through the front office, retailers, adjustments, products don't work, rush orders. So it's a really complex and messy system. So in the 1980s, this channel was doing fine. Manufacturers knew what they would sell it for, wholesalers knew what they'd buy it for, the retailers knew what the wholesaler paid and what their price would be, the installers had good expectations of how much their parts would cost, and everything was fine. Everybody was doing pretty well. There was very little conflict. All right, and then a couple of things happened. One, the economy got strong. People stopped getting their cars fixed as often, and when their car got 50 or 60,000 miles, they bought a new car. That went back to the dealership. The dealerships took the used cars, and they would fix them up and replace any parts, but through a different supply chain or different marketing channel. So they didn't buy from those same manufacturers, right? And the second thing that happened was cars got really complex. Cars became run by computers. You know, your fuel injection, all the sensors on your cars, anti-lock brakes. So cars got really complex, not only in terms of electronics, but also they changed the engines. They turned them sideways. They put the transmissions in the front. They changed the body structure. So what happened was, the upshot of all this was that sales of replacement parts declined. More cars went back to the dealers, right? Cars were so complex that people who wanted to fix up their own cars and do their own repairs couldn't, or they didn't have the new tools and diagnostic equipment that was needed to even find out what the problem was. Local garages didn't have the money or the knowledge to buy the expensive diagnostic and repair equipment, nor find trained people to do this. So most gas stations that sold automotive services closed the automotive service part and became convenience stores. Lastly, as the number of independent garages and gas stations declined, specialized chain stores and franchises popped up because they can make the investment in technology and training. So now you could take your car to Jiffy Lube, Meineke, or Minus, or Goodyear, or Goodrich, or Pep Boys, or Monroe, different larger companies that either franchise or owned many multiple locations. So what was the impact? Well, manufacturers decided that, hey, we can't sell more parts to the wholesaler because their sales are down. So they decided to sell parts directly to the chain stores. Mainly the parts for the most popular makes of cars, but they decided to skip the wholesaler, skip the retailer, and sell directly to the chain store. Wholesalers were furious, of course, but all the manufacturers were doing it. There was nothing they could really do. The chain store could buy it at the same price that they could buy it for. So what did they do? They opened their own stores, retail stores, in competition with their own customers. That way they could capture some of that. They had the parts and lower prices. They could just open up their own stores. Of course, the auto parts stores were also very upset. Now they were competing with manufacturers selling to the chain store that might be right near them, and they're competing with their wholesaler for other business as well. So what happened? Many of them went out of business. Others were able to find ways to add value through better service and found better pricing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The installer and consumers, the end user in this case, they had a lot of the value. They needed the service done. They had the money they were willing to pay. So the cost of getting your car repaired actually decreased some. What's the moral of the story? There's lots of conflict in channels, especially when sales are soft. Each level in the channel often looks to make up for lost profit and sales by taking some from other channel members. Vertical conflict is between is conflict at two different levels: a wholesaler versus a retailer, a manufacturer versus a wholesaler, even a manufacturer versus a retailer. Horizontal conflict is often at the same level. For example, a wholesaler might sell to two different retailers and have an agreement between them that they're not going to sell to customers in each other's territory. When one of them decides that that's not really fair and goes into the other's territory, that creates conflict. The bottom line is goal incompatibility is usually the main source of conflict. Independent organizations or people often have to pursue their own goals. These goals may be at the expense of other members in the channel, the team, the organization. So, the best or ideal solution for conflict is to have everybody buy into a superordinate goal. Superordinate goal is an overall goal that provides mutual benefit for everyone. In other words, if everyone cooperates and compromises, then everyone will get a good, fair share of the profit. The issue with these types of solutions are that they're just difficult in reality and difficult to maintain. Organizations are often under pressure beyond their control in terms of goals or changing goals. And over time, goals for organizations often change, which leads to conflict. So what do you do if not everybody will play nice? Think about it. Who would win in a fight or a battle? It's the one with the most power, the strongest. So in our case, power is the ability to make another person, organization, or group do what you want. Sources of power. There are 5. Come from sociology, actually. The most common one is reward. Hey, give people an incentive to do what you want. It works really well. Parents give their kids extra dessert to eat their Brussels sprouts. You have to be careful of overusing reward, because after a while, it's not an incentive anymore, it's an expectation. Coercion, or threatening to punish, can be very effective, especially in the short term. If you use it too much, it leads to a lot of issues. First of all, sometimes organizations, which are made of people, get fed up. And they'll do something against you even though they know they're going to get punished. Just because it makes them feel better and they want to express to you their resentment. Second, if you use a lot of punishment and then lose that power and need the cooperation from the organizations that you've been threatening a lot, you're unlikely to get it. The shoe is now on the other foot. Why would they be nice to you? Third, if you're always threatening and punishing other organizations in your channel, then they're not going to work with you anymore. They're going to leave. They're going to go find another marketing channel, another supply chain to work with. And then you're going to have problems. Expertise is another source of power. That means that the person or organization with the most experience or information, right, is often seen as the expert, and therefore, is able to exercise some power. And certainly in business, experience and information is not only a source of power, but a source of profit as well. So the ability to collect information, know what's going on in the market, understand your consumers or the end users is really important. Legitimate power is when one party, organization, is seen as having kind of a fair and natural claim to leadership. As a teacher, I have certain things that I can ask you to do in the class and you'll do them because I'm the teacher. It isn't so much that I can reward or punish you, but it's because I have that kind of authority built in. In business, legitimate power comes from contracts, laws, and regulations. That if you have a contract and somebody breaks it, you can sue for damages. If companies are breaking the laws and the rules, then they can be reported. The last source of power is referent power. I like to call it affiliation. And that means that one party wants to be associated with another, so much so that they'll do whatever that party asks them to in establishing a relationship. That's why people go through hazing. It's like an initiation fee, right? That power comes from the added value that company offers in the marketplace. For example, companies might want to work with Apple to be a authorized repair facility. Apple might say to them, that's fine, but you're going to have to send your technicians to us for training and pay for that. You're going to have to stock $100,000 worth of parts over the course of a year, and you're going to have to give us 10% of your sales and 5% of your profits. If you like to be an authorized repair facility and you're willing to do those things, then we agree. If you don't, then we're not going to form a relationship with you. The company that wants that relationship is free to accept or walk away. They're not being forced. The more value you have in the marketplace, the more other channel members will want to work with you, and the more likely they're going to let you take or earn more profit. With all the complexity and conflict in channels, especially when they're made up of independent companies, it's not surprising that companies, marketers have tried to organize what they call vertical marketing systems. They use different sources of power to try to make a unified channel where there's less conflict. There are three basic types of these vertical marketing systems, or VMSs. The first is corporate. That's where one company owns or controls almost everybody in the channel. Hey, you do it all yourself. Apple maintains extreme amount of control in all their channels, right? And they have their own corporate marketing channel with their retail stores and their website. An administered vertical marketing system, right, is when one company works with basically smaller companies. They use both referent power, right, and they do have reward and usually coercion or punishment available as sources of power. Procter and Gamble, Intel, Walmart, Amazon all have lots of power because hey, if you can get your products in Amazon or Walmart, they have all the customers, largest retail and internet retailers in the world. If you want to make a computer, then you better have an Intel chip in it. They're going to command a lot more money. If you don't stock the leading brands from Procter & Gamble, people are likely to go to other grocery stores. So most grocery stores are willing to pay more for Tide and other Procter & Gamble products. The last type of vertical marketing system is a contractual one, where channel members are all bound by contracts. There are three common types. The most common type are franchises. Franchises are just agreements between two parties on how to run a business. So, a McDonald's, a Dunkin' Donuts, a Burger King, they are fairly elaborate agreements between the franchisor, McDonald's, and the franchisee, the person who buys it. If you break your contract, you can lose your franchise. Other franchises can be really simple. Hey, display my sign and you can use our brand name. The second type is a retail cooperative. A retail cooperative is where independent retailers combine together to buy in bulk and do their own wholesaling. Ace Hardware and True Value Hardware do this. All the small hardware stores get together, buy a group of common products, okay, and with all their great numbers, they're able to buy products at close to the same prices that big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's can purchase at. Voluntary chain stores are really similar. The main difference is that independent retailers are recruited by a wholesaler, and they sign contracts with a particular wholesaler who then will buy in bulk and deliver to the independent stores better pricing. IGA supermarkets are an example of a voluntary chain stores. Independent stores all kind of grouped together. They buy through IGA, display their logo also, to get prices that make it easier for them to compete with Stop and Shop and Big Y and any of the large regional supermarket chains.